So, as you all know, 3,300 years ago, the Jewish nation stood in a public event in Mount Sinai. Millions of people heard the voice of God speaking to Moses in a live event. It never happened in any other religion from the 80,000 religions and cults that came later on in history. It never happened in Buddhism. It never happened in Christianity. It never happened in Islam. It never happened to any one of the 80,000 religions and cults that exist in the world today. Every one of them started with a story of one individual who started to say that he had a revelation, he saw the enlightenment, he saw the light, the angel Gabriel gave me the Quran, Mary had a dream, God came to her in a dream and made her pregnant. This is how they all started. Unlike them, the Jewish nation, which is the first solid religion, before that it was only idol worshippers in the world, as we read from the time of Abraham. The Jewish nation had a public event that changed the face of the world and history for good. We all stood in Mount Sinai when Moses gave us the Torah. When we opened the Torah, we read about ourselves, those Jews who were standing there, what happened to them in Egypt. It's written in the Torah that they all heard the voice of God, all of them, and obviously if it would not be true, they would not agree to accept the Torah. Because when you come to secular Jews today, you can beg them sometimes for weeks to become religious, and they refuse. Leave me alone, you be religious, live and let live. I'm not interested. I like the way I am. Nobody wants, not nobody, but the majority of the people, they give you very hard time until they're convinced to keep some of the laws. That's the way I'm talking from 21 years of experience. It's not easy. But in one day in history, the entire nation turned into a religious nation. They received the book. They all started to keep the laws. Some of the laws are very strange in a human logic. It's very difficult to understand those laws. Sacrifices, the Sabbath, not eating chametz, 5 kinds of grains. Who cares? If a human being would make the laws, obviously the last thing he would care about what you eat or certain things that you do or not do. He would try to make a better society. So he would say, you should not kill, you should not steal, respect your parents, don't touch someone else's wife. He would make some rules to keep civilization and healthy society, and he would make all the laws based on his common sense. But when we review the Torah, we see that about 80% of the laws of the Torah are divine, meaning it's impossible to understand them in human logic. Even if you learn many, many years of Torah, you still have so many secrets relates to those commandments that only we're going to understand that when we move to the next world. Right? As of now, it's a decree. You have to keep it. That's what God say. Accept it. No questions asked. One of the laws of the Torah, ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha. You should love your fellow Jew like you love yourself. It doesn't mean you should hate the Gentiles. You should respect the Gentiles. You're not allowed to steal from them. You have to, appreciate what they do for you. Basically, you don't have any permission to hurt the Gentiles in any possible way. But obviously, they're not your brothers. They're not from the same family. So the same way every normal person loves his brothers and sisters more than he loves strangers on the street, but not even from his nation, that's perfectly normal. You have an obligation to love your relatives more than you love strangers. Even among the Jewish nation, you have your brother and you have a stranger. If you have enough money to help one of them, assuming your brother is normal and is not doing bad things with the money, who do you have an obligation to help with? You have to help your brother. And if you have leftover, then you help the stranger. And if you have leftover, then you help the non-Jew. There is a list of priorities, and everybody understands. It makes perfect sense. Same thing the Gentiles. They help their own people. Muhammad helped Mustafa. Chris helped John. Yosef helped Yitzchak. Perfectly fine, no complaints. However, there is a misunderstanding what it really means, ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha. Is it really possible for a person to love someone else, even his own brother, just exactly the way he loves himself? Is it possible? Let's say you have a friend, colleague at work. You work with him, nice guy. Can you love him exactly like you love yourself? Can you love your nice neighbor? You're crazy about him. He's wonderful. But can you love him exactly the same way you love yourself? The answer is absolutely not. So what's going on here? We have a rule in Judaism that God doesn't give a test to people unless if they can pass it. Same way, a father will not ask his 3-year-old child to pick up a refrigerator on his back and go 10 flights up, and then if he doesn't do it, he will give him a strict punishment. That's not a normal father. Why are you giving a 3-year-old such an assignment and there's no chance that he can ever do it? And on top of it, give him a punishment? And sometimes death penalty, as some of the laws of the Torah. It cannot be that God is worse than a crazy human being. It cannot be. Simple common sense. So if he told the Jew, you should do A, you should do B, you should do C, that's for sure that to say that it's possible and there's no problem doing it. It may be difficult, but it's not impossible. In that case, please explain to me, what does it mean you should love every Jew from your nation just like you love yourself? And I'm saying even nice people, even people who did favors to you, even people who lend you money when you need them, they're always nice to you, they always speak great about you, they buy you dinners, they never hurt you, they're wonderful people. And you see what they do and you love them very much, you still don't love them even 1% than what you love yourself. Because if somebody would come in and say, one of you has to die, choose which one, most likely you would say, I'm very sorry, but I want to live. I'm not telling you to kill him, I'm just telling you to leave me alive. Right? It's normal. And you're not a criminal for doing it. Because the Torah says, Chayecha kodmim, your life comes before others. You have to protect yourself. If you can protect yourself and someone else, then it's an obligation. If it's either you or him, you have to save yourself. If you give up your life to save a stranger, you're a fool. And you get punished for that. Why? You don't have permission to give up your life. Even if it's a good thing. You want to help someone. You can help him as long as it's there in the Torah. V'chai achicha imach. Your brother should live with you, meaning you first. Otherwise, what the Torah has to say with you? Then your brother should live. But with you means first you, and then if you can save him, very good. What does it really mean, ve'afta l'reacha kamocha? The answer is, when we receive the Torah, most people in the world do not understand it. The Gentiles don't understand it, and the majority of the Jews do not understand that the main Torah in Judaism is the oral Torah, not the written Torah. The written Torah obviously describes over 1,000 years of history. It tells us the name of the 613 laws. It tells us many of the traits of God, what makes him happy, what makes him angry. We learn a lot of things from the stories of the Torah. But if you only had the written Torah, you would not be able to keep one of the laws, one even, of the 613 laws of the Torah. You wouldn't know how to keep the Sabbath, because there's a lot of laws. All of them were given verbally. You wouldn't know how to slaughter the animal and make them kosher. You would not know which food is kosher, which food is not kosher. You would not know basically how to circumcise the babies. You would not know where to cut. You would not know how to cut. You would not know what to do when the baby is yellow, when his brother already died from a circumcision. Are you allowed to do that? You would not know if to do it in the day or at night. You wouldn't know how to prepare tefillin, from what animal, how to prepare it, what color, what to put inside, what makes it kosher, what makes it not kosher. There's over 1,000 laws just how to prepare tefillin. You will never know that. All of that was given to Moses in Mount Sinai together with the written Torah combined. And the written Torah say these are the Torahs, plural. And the 10 commandments that I put, the boards of stone that I put in the hand of Moses in Mount Sinai. Torahs mean plural, more than one. Which one? The written and the oral Torah. In few other places in the Torah it says, do as I showed you in the mountain. What did he show him in the mountain? We will never know. When he told him, I want you to prepare the menorah of Bet HaMikdash, the menorah, the gold menorah, 1,300 pounds of gold, one piece, engraved in such an amazing art. He had difficulty. So Hashem said to him, do as I showed you in the mountain. Meaning, you can see from here that he showed him things in the mountain that are not written in a written Torah. And only he knew, and he went and demonstrated to the Jewish nation. He showed them how to circumcise. He showed them how to prepare tefillin. He showed them all the laws, one by one, how to do. And right away, the 70 elder people started to teach others. And 40 years, it started to spread until everyone learned from everyone what needs to be done. Just like today. When you're Baal Tshuva and you go to a religious community, you know zero. You only know you have to be religious. You come to the house of shaman for Shabbat. In one Shabbat, you already learned 50 things. You're not allowed to turn fire on. You're not allowed this. This is how you cook. This is how you use toilet paper. This is how you do this, and this is how you do that. And when certain areas you can carry on the street, certain areas you cannot. You learn a lot of things. One Shabbat, you already know a lot. 10, 20 Shabbatot, you learn so much. Everybody learns from everyone. Many times in shul, you come, you make mistakes for years. All of a sudden, you go to a place of big rabbis, and you see none of them does like you. Right away, you know, you ask one of them, I've been putting my tefillin like that. Does that mean I wasn't doing it right? It's not right. This is the right way. Oh, so you just learn. People learn from people. That's called tradition. So obviously, the 613 laws, not even one of them it's possible to keep without all the thousands of instructions in the oral law. Now, the oral law, it was a restriction. No one was allowed to write it. And if person wanted to write some memos to remind himself what he learned in yeshiva, all he was able to write is one topic per scroll. There was no paper like today. They had scroll from the animal's skin. They removed the skin. Just like when you use the Torah, they wrote with a feather comments. The only way they were able to do it is one topic per scroll. Meaning, if it falls in the hands of the Gentiles, they will not have the entire Torah written, the oral Torah. Meaning, if a non-Jew will have the written Torah, he will not be able to keep one of the laws that God gave to the Jews. Why? Because the laws are only for the Jews. There are specific laws in the Torah that it says clearly that only the Jews are permitted to keep. For instance, the Sabbath. Only for the nation of Israel. It's an eternal covenant between me and the nation of Israel for eternity. Meaning the Gentiles are not allowed to keep the Sabbath, even if they want very much. Not only they don't have to, if they want, they're not allowed. Other things they're allowed. If they want to eat kosher, no problem, you can eat kosher. If they want to put mezuzah in their door, as long as they respect it, they're allowed. They want to dress modest, very good, recommended. There's no contradiction. Most of the laws, the non-Jews are allowed. But there are few specific laws. For instance, learning specific Torah, Jewish law, they're not allowed to learn. It's only for my children I give. Keeping the Sabbath, they're not allowed to keep. The specific things that the Torah say clearly only for my children. Other things, everyone is welcome. This is an eternal covenant between me and my children. Only my children are allowed to keep. So far, everything is clear. Now we move on. So as a result of that, every time we read a mitzvah in a Torah, we cannot translate it with our own common sense. Even we think we understand the literal meaning, we read what it means. The Torah is not translated literally. Many of the times, what you read and what the real law is, completely different. For instance, the Torah says 3 times, Lo tevashel gdi b'chalev imo. Don't take a goat, a sheep, and cook it in the milk of his mother. Meaning take his meat, cook it in the milk of his mother. If you translate it literally, that means the only restriction is not to take lamb chops, dip them in milk, and cook it on a grill. That's not allowed. But the cow, meat, beef, it's no problem because it spoke about gdi, and I'm taking a cow. But obviously, when you go to the oral law, it says all kinds of meat, all kinds of meat. And not only that, why it repeated 3 times, the oral Torah explained, to teach you 3 different laws. One, that you're not allowed to eat it. Second, that you're not allowed to cook it even for non-Jews. Not allowed to put them together and cook them. And the third law, that even if you made a mistake and accidentally you did a cheeseburger, or you didn't know there's milk over there and it got melted on the meat, oh, I made a mistake. I already made a sin, not intentionally. Okay, now why should I lose $10? Hey, Tony, come here, give me $10 and take this. Buy it from me. Help me to save it instead of going and throwing it to the garbage. Even that is not permitted. Meaning now you learn 3 different laws in the oral Torah, that without oral Torah, no one in a history would have any idea that that's what God meant. Now let's talk about what we want to speak. You should love your brother like you love yourself. You should love your fellow Jew like you love yourself. Doesn't mean literally that I have an obligation to love every Jew that I see on the street just like I love myself. No, not at all. It's not realistic. It's not possible. If you think it's possible, think again. I will prove to you that it's not possible. How do I prove to you? I know you're very nice and kind. As much as you are kind and nice and loving, it's not possible. How do I prove it to you? I'll tell you a quick story. Reuven went to his home, and as he come to the neighborhood, he saw police, ambulance, lots of people crying like that. What happened? What happened? He asked the neighbors. A baby fell from the 4th floor and died. What? Oh my God, I live in the 4th floor. His heart. What kind of baby? Not even a year old. What? Wow, it's my child. Hashem Merachem. He runs like crazy. The police, he cannot go in. Push the policeman, run inside. Then he sees his wife. Reuven, relax, it's not Moishi. He faints. He begins to cry. Oh, thank you, God. I don't know how I'm going to pay you back. Thank you for making this miracle for me. What happened? You should love your neighbor like you love yourself. The child of the neighbor just fell and died. If it was possible to love your neighbor like you love yourself, that means it doesn't make a difference who died, your child or his child. A Jewish boy fell and died, same thing. It doesn't matter. You don't have to ask who died. You fall on the floor and cry for a month. Why? A little baby fell. Now we all is going to cry when we heard that the son of the neighbor fell from the window and died. We're going to cry. For how long? A day. Tomorrow we'll go back to work. You can go back tomorrow to work. God forbid your little baby fell from the window. A year you cannot function in a best case scenario. So if you think it's possible, like I say, think again, it's not normal. It's not natural. So what did the Torah meant, literally, love them like you love yourself? The answer of the oral Torah is, what you hate being done to you, don't do to others. Don't have to love them like you love yourself. You hate people cheating you, don't cheat them. You hate people sitting on your bed and making it dirty without permission, don't do it to them. You hate people breaking into your words and putting you down, don't do it to them. All the things that obviously every normal person doesn't like to get from his friends, don't do it to them. That's what it means, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. But I want to add one more thing to that. Very important thing. What is it? What do you think would be the nicest way to prove to your friend that you love him very much? Give me your idea. You have a friend, both, you're religious and he's not religious. And you want to show him how much you love him to the maximum level possible of 2 friends, not family, friends. What do you think would be the nicest way to prove to him that you love him? Yes? Take him on a trip to hell? To where? Trips can be different places. Yeah. What do you think would be the way to prove to him that you love him? So if you ask ordinary people to give him money, to take him on a trip, to share my cocaine with him or heroin. That's how the bodies are doing. Hey, buddy, try it. It will make you forget. It will make you die. That's what it will make you. But maybe he meant well. I don't know. My answer to you is, you have an opportunity. Yeah. Well, if you don't speak falsely on someone behind his back, it's very nice of you, but I don't think it's the best way to prove to him that you love him. There's better ways than that. That's mandatory. This you should not do to any human being. It's a way of life. Why are you speaking behind people's back and ruining their reputation? It's a different violation of the Torah. I'm not talking about people that are not decent. They like to eat each other with their mouth. No. I'm talking proof that you love them, yeah. The hardest for you, or the hardest for him also, when he needs someone the most. That's very nice. You're right. That's one of the best way to prove to your friend that you're always available for him, whether it's comfortable to you, whether it's costful, whether it's the time he needs you the most. And it's not based on your convenience, it's based on his demand. Very nice. You say a very good answer, but I have a much better answer than yours. No offense. Yes. You ruined the whole quiz here. Tov, no, I hope they didn't hear you. So I will repeat her words in a little bit more clear way. Listen to what I say. The Torah has another commandment. What is it? It says, "Ocheach tochiach et amitecha velo tisa alav chet." Every religious Jew that lives by the law of God has an obligation. Not recommendation. Obligation. Just that you have an obligation not to eat pork, and you have an obligation to pray, and you have an obligation to do charity to the poor people. There's obligations. One of the obligations is when you see a Jew that is lost spiritually. He lived in a total spiritual darkness. He doesn't know who God is. He doesn't believe the Torah is from God. He doesn't follow anything. He lives completely like a Gentile. Complete atheist. His life has no direction. Not to talk about horrible things that he does to himself. When you see him, there are two ways to handle him. One is to say, what is it my business? I'm religious? Yes. My wife religious? Yes. My children religious? My brother, sister, my parents? Leave me alone with him. I have to focus on my own life. What is it? I'm going to waste my time and efforts and money to go beg him? No, it's not my problem. I take care of my own children. That's my obligation. The Torah didn't say that. The Torah says you have an obligation and to speak to every Jew that you have relationship with. Not every Jew on the street. You're not obligated to stand here on Shabbat in Pico Boulevard. Excuse me, you're a Jew, I know you, it's Shabbat. Why are you driving the car? No. That's not the obligation. Otherwise, you will never be able to leave the street. All week, you have to scream to people. So, that's not your obligation. But people that you have relationship with, neighbor, cousin, uncle, parents, children, all kinds of things like that. People that you have some kind of conversation. Speak about sport, you speak about politics, you speak about Obama, whatever you speak about, you already have a key to his heart. He's willing to give you a chance to speak. You have to always think, how do I open up the eyes of this blind brother of mine that lives in a darkness and is on the way to total destruction? This is the way you have to think. You don't think about the nonsense that you talk about. This nonsense is not going to get you anywhere. Right now you have to think about life-saving. How do I save this drowning person from losing his eternity? That's the first thing that you are obligated to think when you speak to every Jew that you have relationship with. Amitecha, someone, a colleague, friends from work, you work in the same section. He drives you, he's your chauffeur, he's a taxi driver who comes constantly to give you rides. Any person that you already developed some kind of a relationship, you have an obligation to speak to him. Now, what happens if you're not such a great speaker? Not everyone knows how to present religion. So, what she said, you get always some bunch of CDs of mine, of other speakers, that you know they are very convincing and proving, and make sure you always have with you, and whenever you come across friends, buddy, you must watch this DVD. What is this? It's amazing. What? What's in it? It gives you the answer to every question you ever heard about the world. Who made the world? Who is God? What are we doing here? What is it, the soul? How do we know there's life after death? Lots of proofs here. Incredible video. That's it. That's your obligation. Nothing else. You give him this, cost you $1. You give him from your charity. Anyway, you have to give charity. You give it to him. My friend, here it is. Watch it. 50% chance he'll watch. 50% chance he'll put it in the garbage or forget about it on a shelf, or maybe remember it after he had an accident next year. Sometimes they remember that a year later. I wonder what this has to say about God. Now when these things happening to me, oh, I remember this rabbi gave me a CD. Let me search for it. And he puts it in. Hi, Rabbi. You know how many times I heard it? Why didn't I listen to it when you gave it to me? Now exactly what you warned in your CD happened to me. You missed the train, my friend. What can you do? One guy, I gave him a CD about intermarriage and the restriction that Jews have in the Torah not to marry other nations. Jew doesn't have permission to have kids with a non-Jew. Doesn't have permission to have relationship, doesn't have permission to get married. It's restriction in the Torah. Not because the Gentiles are bad, not because they're not as good as us. Maybe they're smarter, maybe sometimes they have better heart, maybe they behave better, maybe they're rich, maybe they're famous, maybe they're clever, whatever the case may be. Take the worst Jew in history that is despicable on the eyes of God. The worst. Drug dealer, murderer, whatever you want to say, you say. And take the greatest Gentile woman on earth. Modest, nice, beautiful, rich, caring, polite, manners, come from an important family. The filthy person that is coming from a Jewish nation, that is by all standards the most wicked person on earth, and she's the most righteous Gentile on earth, and in the eyes of God she's 1,000,000 times better than him. No discrimination. This field cannot marry her. Why? That's the rules in the Torah. What can I do? I didn't write the Torah. That's what it says. It says in the Torah clearly. You're not allowed. You don't have permission to change my nation to other nations. If the Gentiles converted to Judaism for real, and he keeps the laws, he becomes a Jew in the highest level. Like I said, no discrimination. But for the truth, not because you met Isaac in a bar. If you would be Mustafa, you would become Muslims. No, it's not for the truth. It's for him. You like him or you like her. You're willing to change your religion for her. That's not the truth. The truth means God is one. He gave us the Torah. He gave the Jews the Torah. I learned what the Torah is. I want to be one of the Jews because it's the truth. Not because I'm in love with a Jewish man or a Jewish woman. No, that's not real. When it's real, you do it for the truth. So what happened now? The Torah said to the Jews, you have an obligation to do everything you can to correct the bad ways of your colleagues and friends and families. What do? You give them a CD. If it's working, fine. If it didn't work, you did what you had to do. If you don't do it, then what happened? I'm not in the mood now. People's going to criticize me. They'll start an argument. It's not pleasant to speak to secular people and convince them to be religious. It's not pleasant. Leave me alone. I have enough on my head. That's not what the Torah says. The Torah says you have an obligation to speak to him, meaning if you don't, you pay for his sins. That's what it's written in the Torah. הוכח תוכיח את עמיתך ולא תישא עליו חטא. That his sin will not go into your file. Meaning, you saw a 16-year-old Jew that you know. He's in the neighborhood. You walk into a place and you saw him about to inject heroin to his vein. You cannot pretend you don't see it. Why do I need a headache now? I have to call his father. I have to call, to do something with his kid. It's not my son. I didn't see it. You pretend you don't see it. Walks in. What? Headache now. I'm going to come to his father. He's going to get angry. Why are you giving me such bad news? I don't want it. My son is not like that. Baruch Hashem, let me move on with my life. It's a big crime. It's like seeing someone drowning and you don't care. You pretend you don't see him. If you're a doctor on a flight, you're on the way to Bahamas for vacation. You're not in the mood to work now. You have enough in a hospital all day. Finally, you have a week off from the nightmare of the hospital, seeing people dying, people screaming, surgery, people depressed. Enough. Give me a week off. Finally, you sit on a plane. Please, tighten your seatbelt. Get ready for a wonderful flight. Excuse me, any doctor on a flight? Someone is getting a heart attack, panic attack, whatever. Oh my goodness now. Some doctor, I don't care. They don't know I'm a doctor. I'm going to start taking care of this woman. They're going to land the plane. I'm going to have to go with her to the hospital. I miss my vacation. It cost me $3,000 a day at the hotel. Who's going to pay me for that? Pretend he doesn't hear. If they'll find out that he was on a flight, would he ever be able to practice medicine? It's done. That's it. You cannot have ever, they take away his license, finish, you're a murderer. You don't care about life of people. In Israel, they wanted to make a law that doctor will be able to give medicine to patients to kill them if they don't have hope, meaning they're going to die anyway, to save them the pain and the suffering. They're about to pass a law that doctors will be able either to disconnect them or to give them some kind of an injection or pill that they take and they die. The head of the doctor organization in Israel, the chief doctor, he gave a speech in the Knesset, in the Israeli government. What did he say? He said, doctors' job are to save life, not to kill life. That's what he says. If we're going to do both, on one hand we're going to save life, and on the other hand we're going to shorten life, eventually we'd lose our credit in the eyes of the public. I am against it. They canceled the law based on his speech. They were about to allow it. They begin to cut people's life. It's a very, very big thing. Sometimes they want the bed. The hospital lose money. There's no health insurance. Yalla, let's cut him now. Maybe we'll wake up one day. Some people come out of coma. Some people came out and went back to normal life. I don't have time to keep him here every night. It's $3,000. גדל והתקדש מרבה. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יחוס ויחמול על נפש, רוח של הנשמה של מיסטר כהן, whatever. That's a very big risk. Once you allow it, you don't know where it's going to end. So, how do you show a Jew that you love him the most? You speak to him even hard words. Why? I speak to you because I love you. And I always give this example when people asking me, why God is so strict with the Jewish nation? More than any nation in the world. In one hand, it says in the Torah, we are the chosen people. He chose us from all the nations. But history shows there's no nation that suffer more than the Jews. There's no question about it. All Gentiles admit. One tragedy after the other. Holocaust, pogroms, problem, destruction of the first temple, destruction of the second temple, 2,000 years of exile. Spreads all over the world, lost their country, finally came back to the country, had to fight. Now 1 day of rest from the Arabs, every day a different terrorist attack. Non-stop. Anti-Semitism all over the world. Half of the world hates the Jews. The United Nations exist only to destroy Israel. That's the only reason they exist. All their votes were against the Jews from day one until today. They don't care about anything else happening in the world. Not what happened in Syria, not happened anywhere else. Everything is constantly against Israel. What's going on? God's supposed to love us, no? So I said, let me give you an example. A person, 1 o'clock at night, found out that his son is not in his room. Where is he? He asked his wife. I don't know. He escaped from the window. A father that cares about his son gets very nervous, no? Where did he go at 1 o'clock at night from the window? For sure, not to volunteer to wash dead bodies in Chevrat Kadisha. It's not exactly my son. He has to be doing something bad. He takes his car, he drives in town like Meshuga, calling his friends, did you see Moishi? Did you see him? Did you see him? No, no, no. One guy say, I think he's in a park. Right away, drives to the park. He sees Jewel, his son, smoking something he's not supposed to smoke, with 9 other of his friends. They're all in good mood. He sees his son, the star of the gang. What would be the reaction of the father, especially if he's Israeli? He would come to give him such a smack. Pa-pam! It's on the floor. And then he said to him, "Oi! Why are you such a cruel person? Why are you always torturing me? Why not him? Why not him? You always hit me. You never do anything to anyone." So the father will answer, "You fool. I only care about you. Why do I care about them? I know them b'chlal. I don't even know their names. Who are they for me? I only care about you. You're my son. I see what you're doing now. It kills me. So I'm strict with you because I love you." Makes sense or no? Now you understand 2,000 years of tortures. One problem after the other. Listens to me. You don't listen to me, I send Adolf. You don't listen to me, I send Muhammad. You don't listen to me, I send him. I send Saddam. I send Hezbollah. I send Hamas. I send ISIS. When are you finally going to get the point? Stubborn. We continue with our nonsense. That's one thing. ואהבת לרעך כמוך is to save his soul before you save his body. It's important. If you need kidney, you want to donate, wonderful mitzvah. Much more important to save his soul. If he die wicked and doesn't keep the laws of life, the law of the Torah, he has no share to the world to come. You could have saved his eternity. You ignored him because you didn't want headache. And now in the next world, he's going to come to you and say, "Hey, dude, you're my buddy, no? Why you didn't care about me? Why you didn't care about me?" It happened to me a few times that people blame me and say, if you would speak to me the way he spoke to him, I would also be religious. Now I didn't. Look what happened to me. Try to feel the horrible feeling when you hear such thing. Try to feel. Sometimes a person say to me, "You have to go speak to this guy. He's about to do this, he's about to do that." But not always you have the time. You can't run to every person. And then he said to you, "Oh, you know, remember the guy asked you to come? He killed himself." No, what are you going to do now? You sit for 3 years and eat your heart. Now, if a guy killed himself, so let's say he was 30, and now he was supposed to live until 70, so he lost 4 years of his life. Big tragedy. Well, what happened if he loses eternity? It's a 1 billion times bigger tragedy. A lot of people, when I spoke to them, I'll be honest with you, in the beginning, I didn't think it's going anywhere. Spoke to them, they saw that I care. I spoke to them a lot even, sweat. They saw me trying and giving and answering their emails later on, giving them CDs. All of a sudden, you see they're beginning to be religious. And then you think to yourself, wow, I almost ignored that guy. I almost did not run to get a CD for my car to give it to him. Look what would have happened. The 1 minute extra that I ran to the car to get, I said, "Wait here, I have something for you." And ran and give it to him and say, "Here is my number, call me tomorrow, tell me what you think." Can change life. So we're done with that.